House Armed Services Agriculture Committee's Khanna. Gentlemen, it's great to have you both. Thank you so much for joining us. Congressman Khanna, let me kick it off with you. What is your expectation for the stimulus bill? Will it pass today?
It will pass. It's going to pass overwhelmingly with Democratic votes. And the main 2 points is it's going to send a $1,400 check to every American who's working class, middle class, up to $5,600 for a family of 4. And you're going to get $3,000 for every child by the end of the year.
What do you make of the criticism around what it's doing in terms of the cities and states? This bill erases San Francisco's debt, apparently, and also eliminates the budget deficit in New York as well. Obviously, Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer wanted that to happen. But, of course, you've heard the criticism that this is rewarding states for poor management.
Well, first of all, I just point out that the bulk of the money in the $1.9 trillion is direct checks to working class and middle class. Now, there is $350 billion to states and localities. A lot of that is because of the costs they bore in the pandemic. A lot of it is to have better public health, to have better vaccination sites, and it is to support the work they're doing in this economic crisis.
Right, but you've heard the criticism that it's only 9% COVID related, and so many other things are, pet projects that have nothing to do with COVID, including the $350 billion to the states and localities.
I know they keep citing this 9% number. I don't know where they get that number, unless you're not counting direct checks to the American people, checks to people's kids as COVID related. I think that is COVID related, unless you're not counting unemployment extension as COVID related. Now, some people say, well, the school funding is going to go out years. Well, one of the reasons is when you don't have kids in school for a year, it's going to take time and resources to get the training and the tutoring that they're going to need. And schools' budgets were hugely hit. But, the 9% number is just not accurate. Is there some part of the bill that's not directly COVID related? Sure. But it's far more than 9%. It's over 50% that's actually just going to people.
Okay, so you say it's just not true. Kevin McCarthy and many on the Republican side have said it's only 9%. Look, you two are coming together this morning for a bipartisan piece of legislation, so I want to get to that. It's aimed at boosting U.S. technology investment. The Endless Frontiers Act would expand the National Science Foundation by injecting $100 billion into a new technology directorate focused on fields like AI and quantum computing. This is also a part of a larger China-focused bill. Congressman Gallagher, let's go through this. I know how important it is to ensure that the U.S. is in the lead on many of these technologies, because the Chinese Communist Party has said it wants to overtake the United States in terms of being the superpower of the world, and doing it through technology can actually get them there. Tell us how this bill leads us in that regard.
Well, if you remember, about a year ago, we had CCP officials threaten to cut off the exports of life-saving drugs to the United States to plunge America into a sea of coronavirus. And it was a chilling example of the type of leverage they might have in the event of a conflict. And it's unacceptable for us to remain dependent upon the largesse of the Chinese Communist Party when it comes to critical technologies. And that's what this bill is all about. Roe and I might disagree about the bill passing Congress today, but we are in alignment, despite different ideological orientations, on the need to invest federal research and development dollars so that America can dominate the technologies of the future that will determine whether or not we win this new Cold War. This also modernized the bureaucracy through which we award dollars, with the goal of building out technological leadership and innovation in the heartland, in the industrial Midwest, and not just concentrating it on the West Coast or the East Coast.
How important is it to ensure that Huawei, a jewel of the Chinese Communist Party, does not get access to important technologies made by American companies?
It's absolutely critical. My hope is that the Biden administration will continue a lot of the tough stances that were taken on Huawei and ZTE, and that we enshrined into legislative proposals in the last administration. It's not just a matter of Chinese champions like Huawei and ZTE spying on people around the world, where Huawei and ZTE technology forms the backbone of your internet infrastructure. It's more a matter of them using their dominant position in the 5G marketplace in order to coerce the rest of the world, in order to threaten to cut off exports of technology, and in order to really export their model of techno-totalitarian governance that they're perfecting in Xinjiang province with the genocide of Uyghur Muslims, not only throughout the rest of the country, but throughout the world.
Yeah, and Congressman Khanna, I know how important this issue is. How do you speak to the corporations there in Silicon Valley and the leading tech companies who obviously want access to the 1.4 billion people in China, want the customers of China to continue buying their products, and yet having them on the entities list does cut off business there? So tell me the sales pitch that you make to these companies to ensure that they understand the national security threat that the two of you are raising.
Well, the Chinese market can't come at the expense of basic human rights. It can't come with indifference to what's happening to the Uyghurs, and it can't come at the expense of giving away our critical technology. But you raised the issue of Huawei, and I agree with Mike about the challenge of Huawei, especially with them being able to collect data, not just from potentially Americans if they were allowed in the United States, but around the world. But when I was in Munich, one of the former president of Estonia said, okay, you're telling us don't use Huawei. What are you offering as an alternative? What are we, the United States, doing in terms of the technology of the future? And the bill Mike and I have put forward will ensure that America leads when it comes to 5G, when it comes to synthetic biology, when it comes to AI. That really is the challenge for the 21st century.
Yeah, and what is China saying about this, Congressman? I mean, look, we know that the Chinese Communist Party is not happy about its companies being on the entities list, is not happy about the United States pointing this out, is not happy about the tough stance that the Trump administration took. So are you expecting blowback from the CCP?
Well, their blowback, in my view, is irrelevant if they're going to have a model of governance that is taking people's data or not recognizing human rights and freedom, or if they're taking IP or requiring for joint ventures American companies to give IP. So we need to, America is not afraid of competing, but it has to be competition that is fair, and it has to be competition that recognizes human rights. And if they reform, then America will engage, but we can't compromise our values to engage.
Right, but I wonder if the corporate sector has gotten the memo, because, Congressman Gallagher, final word here, I think that there are so many companies that are not showing that they understand the national security threat. They want to be in and they want to have open access in Beijing, and it is up to the administration to show that we're going to take a tough stance so that they understand the real threat here that you both are raising.
Well, you're right. I mean, obviously, we've seen troubling developments in recent years with Google, for example, balking at working with the U.S. military, but being eager to invest millions of dollars in AI centers in China. We've seen embarrassing examples with the NBA bending the knee to Xi Jinping in China for the sake of making a lot of money. The same is true with Hollywood. And so I think it's up to those of us in public office to really sound the alarm, to make the case for why some form of selective and smart economic decoupling that onshores or nearshores jobs here in America, and as Khanna rightly points out, results in closer allied partnerships, particularly when it comes to technology, is so critical.
Yeah, it's really important work that you're both doing. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll keep watching the developments. Congressman Mike Gallagher and Congressman Khanna. We'll see you.